Welcome back to another episode of the Pretty Profesh podcast. I am Sarah Voris, here by myself today, recording a solo episode. So I feel like I need to make all of the obnoxious noises that we all do together at the beginning, all the chitter chatter. So it's just me. Sarah Bell and Haley Westfall normally join me, but this week, life happens, motherhood happens, business, all the things, as you know. So it's just me. And today I'm talking about something that has recently just happened in my business. I want to talk to you about the 3 things I learned from my latest launch. At the beginning of January, middle of January, I ran a challenge to write your nurture sequence in 4 days. We wrote it together as a group. And at the end of the challenge, you would have your entire nurture sequence lined out for you. You'd get feedback from me, other people in the group. We wrote it together using templates. That's my freebie. That's how I get people into my pipeline. And at the end of the challenge, I invited them into my offer for my email template membership called Use Your Words. And it was, for me, I want to say the first time I actually did a full, maybe the second time now that I'm saying that, but a full launch. Here's the challenge. And actually, I think even the first time I did it, I'm going to keep going back and forth. The first time I did it, I didn't do a challenge. I just did launch. And then I did another time, I want to say 2 years ago, and I quit mid-launch. Which I'll talk about in a little bit, but this was the first time that I did the full shebang challenge, running them through with all the automations, getting through the funnels, all of that, and then successfully completing a launch. So I wanted to talk about things that I learned in that process, because live launching is exhausting. Live launching makes me sleepy. It was, I think our challenge was 4 days, but I had a week before the challenge where I was talking about the challenge, trying to get people into the challenge. Then 4 days of the challenge, and the last day is when I opened cart just for people that were in the challenge with me. So it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They had special pricing for that challenge. And then Monday, I opened cart to everybody on my email list, everybody on social, whatever. And then I kept that open for 8 days. So it was 3 weeks of just feeling like I was constantly going. That was a lot. I feel like my next time that I open it, I'm going to do it shorter. For a few different reasons. But one of them was just it was draining. I really liked showing up and doing it, but I was exhausted and felt like I had very little bandwidth for anything else in my business, in my life. There was just not a lot else going on at that point. So I have three lessons that I learned in this launch process, aside from the fact of how exhausting it is. Number 1 is that having a beta group go through your product or service or whatever it is that you're launching is so important. I've never done that before. I've done beta groups for things before, but then decided not to launch them, which is so important because you have to have feedback from people who are your ideal customer for that particular product or service. I had 5 people go through my membership for 3 months. And got really specific feedback from them. And there was a ton that I said, let's just get this out of here. It didn't make sense for, I thought that it needed to be one way, but after going through all of the components with them, there was just stuff that I'm like, well, this wasn't helpful. I thought that this was going to be the thing. And they're like, actually, we didn't use that at all. Or something that I was like, we'll just throw this in and it's a bonus. And they're like, no, we loved that. And I added that back in to be a full-time permanent thing in the membership. So that feedback is crazy important. And I did it. Some people do it. They'll launch and tell everybody that it's the beta group and kind of get as many people in that way. I did it secretive. And I asked a handful of people that I knew where they were in their business, that they would be, it would be helpful for them. People I already knew and had a good relationship with, so I knew what their business looked like, how it was established, that it would be something that they would find helpful and useful in their business. If you do it the other way, which is fine, where you do it public, I feel like you have to kind of qualify those people a little bit. Excuse me. You have to, if you have people in there, it's helpful to have a vast, like different kinds of businesses and all that, but then you do have to make sure that they know maybe they're not your person for this, or be really clear about what it is and who it's for. So that way at the end, they're not feeling like, well, they didn't get anything. I mean, they're getting a great deal just being in beta anyway. But you just have to be careful, because you're going to get a lot more people who like don't fall through that, like the sieve. Is that what it's called? Sieve? Like, that's the bad example. You're just going to have a lot of people that might not be who you're specifically looking for. I actually asked someone in our beta group who I was like on the fence about that type of business, whether or not it could be helpful for them. And it was really, really good to have that person in my beta group, because I was able to see how they could use it. It's just going to look a little different, and how I can like massage it so that it's open to that type of business. So I like doing it kind of secret, at least that first round, so that because you might not have clarified all your messaging. You might not have all of your stuff dialed in. And so when you're able to handpick who you get to have in the group, it really is helpful, so that you can get the specified feedback that you want. So number one is that beta is everything. Number two, the second thing that I learned was in the midst of my launch, I was actually talking with a really good friend of mine throughout the launch, and she's like a few steps ahead of me in her business. Well, I'd say several steps ahead of me. And she's launched many, 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 many times. And so she was kind of walking me through, her framework that she does. And there was a point like halfway through where I was like, well, this is why I give up. Nothing's going right. Everything, all of the markers that I feel like I should have had at this point aren't here. I'm not getting the response that I thought I would. Everyone who was excited about it, I haven't heard from. I'm not getting those conversations returning that I thought I was. All the things were going wrong. And she was like, oh, you come to the launch spiral. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I can't remember who, I want to say James Wedmore, but that might not be right. It was some other business guru that taught her in his program that it's called the launch spiral. And everyone gets to a point in their launch where they're spiraling and where it feels like nothing is going right, that you might as well quit. And like I said, there's been other launches that I have stopped. I didn't finish because I was embarrassed that nobody was buying, which nobody knows. Can we just be real that when you I don't know if this is something that anybody else struggles with, but I get like weird thinking that people are going to think I'm a failure if they don't know that I'm not making $10,000 every month, which literally nobody knows how many sales you're making. So there's no point in getting embarrassed about it, or they don't know your business. They don't know the strategy behind it, what's working. 5 sales could be amazing for you, or 1 sale could be, life-changing for you. So that's just a random encouragement, is that there's only certain people that you allow behind the scenes, right? And that's for good reason, because they don't need to be in your business. And we should have zero shame about putting ourselves out there and doing our business. Absolutely zero shame. What we do is really hard. And when we get back up and continually do it is really hard. So any step that you're doing to move your business forward is worth taking. So the launch spiral is something that I have previously given into. And I the last time that I did a launch was similar for my membership, but it wasn't a membership model. It was like the things that I was teaching, but taking it at like a one-time, here's your digital download situation. And I was like 4 days into the launch, and I was like, well, I quit. I suck. No one wants to buy from me. And I just stopped. I didn't continue my email sequence. I didn't continue reaching out to people or talking about it on social. And to me, that's like, in hindsight, that's more embarrassing that I would just like not push through. I'm embarrassed that I was embarrassed. And that leads me, the launch spiral leads me into the last one. But just know that in the midst of a push, in the midst of a cart open, in the midst of talking about a new thing, and all the while in a launch, there will be a point in every single launch you do where you feel like nothing is going right and that you should just stop. And that's a completely normal feeling that I hope no, like once she said that to me, I was like, oh, you felt like this too? She's like, literally every time I've ever launched a product, that's how I feel at some point. So just know that it's coming. It's almost like when they talk about like anxiety feelings, that where you can like ride that wave of anxiety, knowing like, okay, yep, I'm in the midst of it. I also know I'm safe. I also know I'm going to get to the other side. Like I just have to wait, do my breathing, do like all the exercises that you need to get through, and you're going to get to the end of it because you know it's coming. You know you can get to the other side of it. And that's kind of how I've had to retrain my brain about this launch spiral, knowing there will be a time I will want to quit. There will be a time where I will question every decision I've ever made, but then I will get to the other side of it. And that brings me to my last point. The last thing that I learned during my launch was that the last 24 hours are truly, for me, I know every audience is different, but I have heard this from several other business owners that the last 24 hours of a launch is where you will get a majority of your purchases. So those first 24 hours, you'll get that initial, somebody who was like ready on it, ready to buy, has been like anticipating this launch. They'll get you in those first 24 hours. And then it's really going to be like crickets, which leads to the launch spiral. But those, the next couple of days, however long that period in between open and close cart can be quiet. And you need to do all the same things and continually showing up on social, making sure you are getting all of your emails out. But those last 24 hours are going to be the most powerful. And for me, it was literally like the last 8 to 12 hours is where I saw my biggest push. The morning of my last day, I send out one. And so I think there was like, those people were like, oh shoot, I know it's the last day, I've been waiting. So I got a couple from that. And then this round, talking to my friend and figuring out how her framework looked, I have only ever sent out 3 emails when I would be launching something or starting talking about a new product. So I would do one in the morning saying like, hey, here's your reminder, here's all the things about this offer, blah 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 blah. Midday, like, just so you know, there's only a few hours left, but here's some random fact about it. And then the last email is short and sweet, like, okay, your last 30 minutes, I know you're a last minute decision maker like me, here's the link. Those are the 3 emails that I usually send. And that's a very general form of what I'm actually sending. But this round, she was encouraging me to send a lot more on the last day. And I was so nervous for unsubscribes. I was so afraid people were going to be annoyed by me. And she was like, I have a very low unsubscription rate. And she said that she sends 5 to 7. Am I making that up? It was something way bigger than what I had done. And so I'm trying to remember if I sent 4 or 5. And that was like a huge stretch for me, which I'm so glad that I did, because I'm not kidding you. The last 8 to 12 hours is where I got a ton on my last email. Like, this is it. This is your very last chance. Doors are closing. Prices increasing. That's when I got the most people who were buying. So don't freak out if you're in the midst of your launch spiral or in the midst of those days in between when you've opened and closed your cart. Stuff happens on the last day. People need that sense of urgency, which is another reason I don't think that I'm going to keep my cart open for 8 days. I think people kind of get to tune it out when they've heard it. So like they need opportunities to hear it, but also they don't need time to forget about it. Time for it to be like, oh, that's one of those things I'll get to, but life gets in the way. So I think for me, I'm going to shorten that up, maybe like 5 days, and really allowing myself to remember or incur, like, I seriously need like a sticky note, like the last 24 hours. Don't panic until you're at the last 24 hours, which I shouldn't panic anyway. But those are the 3 things for me that were the biggest lessons. Beta group testing is everything. Launch spiral happens to everybody in the last 24 hours. Stuff happens. A note on your beta group. I found it weird at first because to me, like a beta group testing seems very professional and like, here's my gigantic business and now that's why I have to do beta testing. So I felt like it was this weird imposter syndrome. Like I was afraid people are gonna be like, what are you talking about? Why would I be your beta group for this little business that you have? And so that is probably my issue more than anything else. But if you are feeling that, like, just step into it and remember that small businesses are like running the world right now. Just know that you're doing great things. So if you are about to launch, if you have launched, I would love to hear from you guys about lessons that you've learned. You can send it to us on our social channels, or I guess that's the easiest way to get a hold of us. So beta is everything. Launch spiral happens to everybody, and everything happens in the last 24 hours. I would love to connect. I am relaunching my membership in just a few weeks, and you can get on that wait list, or get my freebie, which is that nurture sequence template I was talking about at the top, and you can just go to sarahvoris.com/nurture freebie. Dang it. I really wish. I think that's what it is. I'll definitely put it in the show notes. I should know it by now. Yeah. So hopefully the girls will be back with me. I might do another solo episode if we have to cram it in the midst of motherhood. But they'll be back with me shortly, and see you later.